All right, so get this. Today's deep dive, we're heading straight to the top of a spiritual mountain, right to the peak. We're talking Dzogchen, which you might know as the great perfection in Tibetan Buddhism. And you know me, anything with a nickname like that, and I am so there.
And it's not just hype. It really is considered the peak. Dzogchen represents the pinnacle of the Nyingma school, and it's steeped in all this lineage, whispered teachings, that sort of thing. But here's the thing that's so interesting about it. It's not about mastering a bunch of complex rituals or doctrines.
Okay, so what's the catch? Because our listeners sent in some really fascinating material, and it almost sounds too simple, like enlightenment is just, I don't know, right there waiting for us.
That's the paradox of Dzogchen, right? It cuts through all the noise, all the other stuff, and basically says you've already got everything you need. It points to this pure awareness inside each of us called Rigpa, which has always been there. It's like a pilot light, just burning even when the furnace isn't on.
So are you saying that while most of us are running around trying to find the light switch, Dzogchen is basically saying, hey, it's already lit, just open your eyes and see it?
Exactly. And, the thing is, most of us are just so used to identifying with that constant chatter of our minds, what's called sem in Dzogchen.
Sem.
Yeah, sem. And we think all those thoughts and emotions, we think that's us. But really, they're just temporary, just passing through.
Okay, wow. I feel very seen right now, I have to say.
Yeah.
My Sem is like basically a 247 news ticker of to-dos and anxieties and whatever else is going on. But if that's not really me, then what is? Is that where this Rigpa comes in?
Precisely. You've got it. Rigpa is that underlying awareness. And it's always there, beneath those thoughts, the emotions, all of it, the whole chaotic symphony of Sem, you could say. And Dzogchen is saying that enlightenment isn't about piling more onto that chaos. It's about stripping it away to reveal the Rigpa that's already present.
So it's less about doing and more about undoing.
In a way, yes.
See, that feels a little counterintuitive, especially for those of us who, we love a good self-improvement project. We like to feel like we're making progress.
Right, but think of it like this. Have you ever just tried to force yourself to fall asleep?
Oh, constantly.
And how's that work out?
Never.
Yeah.
In fact, it's always the opposite. The harder I try, the more wide awake I feel, which is, not super helpful when you're trying to get some sleep.
Exactly. And it's the same with Rigpa. You can't force it. You can't just will it into being. It's about relaxing the grip, letting go of all that striving, and just simply resting in that state of pure awareness.
So you're saying it's about surrender, not striving.
Okay.
But if it's that simple, why is Dzogchen considered this, high-level teaching?
That's a great question. Because, you see, while the goal might sound simple, the path to actually get there, it requires incredible precision. And often it takes years of really dedicated practice to get there. And that's where the role of a teacher comes in. It's so essential in this tradition.
So it's not as easy as me just being like, all right, Sam, quiet down. Time for the Rigpa party to start.
Not quite, no. That's where those pointing out instructions that are unique to Dzogchen come in. Imagine a master giving you completely personalized directions, helping you to actually recognize that awareness that's already within you, not giving you something new, but helping you to see what you might have missed.
So like a spiritual GPS guiding you back to your own true nature. I like it. I'm intrigued. But I have to admit, this whole doing by not doing thing, it still has me a little puzzled, I'm not going to lie.
And that's totally understandable, because it really is a radical departure from how we usually think about personal growth and achievement.
Right.
And that's a really great segue into how Dzogchen is different from other types of meditation that you might be more familiar with.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that a little bit, because I'm already imagining our listeners who swear by their meditation apps, like Headspace, Calm, all those, and they're listening to this and thinking, wait, hold on. There's no guided visualizations. No mantras. What's going on here?
You're spot on. Dzogchen takes a totally different approach. It's not about giving your mind something to focus on, but rather something to let go of.
So if we're not focusing on a mantra or a visualization, what are we actually doing in Dzogchen practice? It kind of sounds like we're just supposed to, not think, which I don't know about you, but that feels kind of impossible.
Well, in a way, yes, but you're right. It's not really about emptying your mind completely. I mean, that's pretty much impossible, right?
Yeah, good luck with that.
Right. It's more about changing how you relate to your thoughts. Think of it like this. Imagine your mind is like the surface of a lake, right? Sometimes it's calm, and sometimes you get those ripples, those waves, maybe even a big splash if you're having a super stressful day. You know how it goes.
Okay, I can picture that. Yeah, my mind on a Monday morning is definitely a very active lake, let's just say.
Exactly. Most meditation traditions, they'd say, okay, so how do we calm those waves down? Maybe even try to freeze the lake solid so there's like zero ripples, total stillness. But Dzogchen kind of flips the script. It's like, no, 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 that's not really the point. The true nature of the lake, it's already stillness, vastness, depth. Those waves, they're just temporary disturbances on the surface. That's it.
So it's more about recognizing that those thoughts, those emotions, they're like waves just passing through, not getting so caught up in them that we think, oh no, this is me, this is who I am.
Precisely. And even more than that, it's about like shifting your identification. Like you're not the waves, you're the lake itself. Does that make sense?
I think so, yeah. It's like those thoughts and emotions, I'm that vast, still awareness that they're happening within. I'm the Rigpa.
Yes, you got it.
Okay. Okay, that's a really helpful analogy. I like that. So instead of trying to force my mind to be quiet, it's more about just observing those thoughts and feelings without judgment, recognizing them as, like you said, just waves on the surface of my own awareness.
Exactly. You're getting it. And you know what this ties into really beautifully? It all connects back to that idea of non-duality in Dzogchen, that idea that the separation between like me and everything else, it's all just an illusion. We've talked about this before, right?
Non-duality.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could go down that rabbit hole all day. But for the sake of our deep dive today, how does that concept actually connect to practicing Dzogchen?
So basically, when you start to recognize the true nature of your mind as this vast interconnected awareness, that's when you start to see through that illusion of a separate self. And it's not about like isolating yourself in some blissful bubble, but realizing, oh, wow, everything's interconnected.
So it's not about escaping the world, but like transforming how we experience it.
Yes, 100%. And, you know, as our listener pointed out in their research, this can lead to some really, really profound benefits, even, and this is a big one, the potential for enlightenment in this lifetime.
Okay, now we're getting to the good stuff. Enlightenment in one lifetime, though? I don't know, that sounds maybe a little too optimistic, even with, like, a shortcut like Dzogchen.
Well, it's important to remember that even though Dzogchen emphasizes this idea of a direct path, it's not about instant gratification, not at all. And our sources did mention these preparatory practices called Nundro, which honestly sound pretty intense.
In Gendro, right. That's the one with all the prostrations and the offerings, yeah.
That's the one. And it's really important to understand that these practices, they're not about earning enlightenment. It's not like you're racking up spiritual brownie points or something.
So it's not a cosmic punch card. You get enough stamps and boom, enlightenment.
No, definitely not. Think of Nundro more like, how do I explain this? Okay. It's like prepping the soil before you plant a seed, right? You're not forcing the seed to grow, but you're creating the optimal conditions for it to really flourish.
So Ngendro helps create that fertile ground for recognizing that inherent enlightenment that Dzogchen keeps pointing to that's already within us. Okay, I think I'm following.
Yeah.
But how does that actually work in our everyday lives? Because that's what I'm really curious about.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Like we can talk all day long about enlightenment and all these concepts, but how does recognizing this Rigpa actually show up when we're just going about our day dealing with all the stuff that life throws our way?
Exactly. Because let's be honest, most of us, we're not about to quit our jobs and move to a cave in the Himalayas to dedicate our whole lives to Dzogchen, you know?
All right, of course not.
So how can this ancient practice be relevant to our modern, often very, very hectic lives?
And that's the beauty of it. You don't have to become a monk or live in a cave, you know? In fact, the real beauty of Dzogchen, I think, is it has the potential to totally transform how we experience everything. Work, relationships, even just like, I don't know, standing in line at the grocery store.
Okay, well, I'm all for a spiritual practice that can make my grocery store runs less stressful, that's for sure. But how does that actually work? You know, how does Dzogchen go from like this ancient meditation tradition to something that actually impacts our daily grind?
Well, remember that lake analogy we were talking about?
Yeah.
Imagine you're in the middle of it all, right? You've got those waves of stress coming at you, work deadlines, relationship stuff, that never-ending to-do list, all of it. But instead of getting like totally swept under by those waves, you're anchored in the stillness, in that vastness of your own Rigpa.
So instead of being like totally reactive, just getting tossed around by every stressful thought or event that comes my way, I can have this kind of underlying sense of peace and stability.
Yeah.
Even in the middle of all that chaos.
Yes, Exactly. And it's not that the challenges magically disappear, but your relationship to them, it transforms. You develop this unshakable core that allows you to navigate all those difficulties with more clarity. And I don't know about you, but I find I can even approach it all with a little bit more of a sense of humor.
So it's not about like quashing the stress or pretending it's not there.
Yeah.
It's more about changing how we respond to it, right? Okay, yeah, that actually feels way more doable. I like that.
Way more doable. And the benefits don't stop there. Remember how we were talking about how Dzogchen helps us to see through that illusion of a separate self?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, what's really cool is that this translates to greater compassion, not just for the people around us, but also for ourselves.
Yeah, okay, I can see that.
Yeah.
Like, if we're not so caught up in our own little bubbles, our own thoughts and feelings, we've suddenly got a lot more mental space to connect with other people, to really understand where they're coming from.
Exactly. And not just understand them, but to meet them with more kindness, more empathy, right? And then, and I think this is a really important point, Doskin can help us to direct that same compassion inward. It can help us to see through all that self-criticism, all those patterns of judgment that we have that can keep us feeling so inadequate.
Right. Like, if our true nature is already perfect, which is what Dzogchen is pointing to, then who are we to criticize, really?
Yeah, right.
It's like we're finally taking off a pair of glasses that we didn't even realize had been, like, smudging our vision this whole time.
I love that. That's a great way to put it. Because it's not about becoming like self-absorbed or denying that we have flaws. It's more about recognizing that there's this fundamental goodness that exists within each of us, beneath all those layers of conditioning, all that self-doubt.
Yeah. It's like we can finally stop trying to fix ourselves and instead start living from this place of wholeness.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
And the coolest thing is that this shift in perspective, it doesn't just stay confined to our meditation cushions, you know what I mean? It ripples outward. It begins to touch our relationships, our work, really our whole entire outlook on life.
It's like this chain reaction of awareness. We start by recognizing our own Rigpa, and then it just kind of expands outward. It encompasses everything and everyone around us.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's what makes Dzogchen so incredibly relevant. Even amidst all the craziness, all the hustle and bustle of our modern lives, it reminds us that the potential for real peace, for wisdom, for genuine connection, it's always available to us. It's right here, right now.
Wow. Okay, that's a beautiful thought to end on. So if our listeners walk away from this deep dive with just one thing, what would you want it to be?
You are not your thoughts, and you are not your emotions. You are that vast open awareness that allows all those things to just come and go.
You are the lake, not the waves.
Perfectly put. And maybe, just maybe, by exploring these practices of Dzogchen, by connecting with qualified teachers, we can all start to get a few more glimpses of that pure awareness, that Rigpa that's been inside of us all along.
I love it. That's definitely a journey I'm ready to embark on. Thanks for being our guide today. This has been truly, truly enlightening.
My pleasure. Always happy to be here.
And to our listeners, as always, keep diving deep. We'll see you next time for another deep dive into, well, whatever sparks your curiosity.